Hello, everybody. Welcome to our video. I'm Vicki. I'm the Community Development Manager at Here for Kids International. And today we're going to be talking about fundraising. I have a couple guests here with me. We have AP Baker and Taylor Cruz. And then we also have Diego Rios, who is the Director of Here for Kids International. So I'll let them introduce themselves and we will talk more about fundraising as we go. AP?
Hi, I'm AP. I'm from Birmingham, Alabama. I've been involved with Here for Kids since 2015 as a team member and then team captain, and then on staff with Here for Kids since 2018. I also have been serving down in the Dominican Republic for the last 2 years as a missionary with Kids Alive International. So through those different experiences, I've gotten to do a lot of different fundraising and excited to talk about those today.
And my name is Taylor Cruz. I went on my first service trip with Here for Kids in 2012 to the Dominican Republic. And after that, I served as a member of staff for 10 years as accounts receivable coordinator. And I'm now transitioning to being on the board for Here for Kids. So obviously an organization that means a lot to me. I currently live in Carson City, Nevada. But for 3.5 years between 2017 and 2021, I was also a missionary for Kids Alive International in the Dominican Republic, like AP is now.
And hello, everyone. My name is Diego Rios, and I am the Executive Director here at Here for Kids. I've been in this role since August of 2020 and excited to be part of this training and talk about fundraising and how we can support you all in your fundraising efforts as you decide to serve with us.
Thank you, guys. So as you may have seen on our website, or if you've heard from other people who have served with us before, fundraising is a big piece of what we do at Here for Kids. We do encourage all of our team members to fundraise for their service trips, as it is a great invitation for others to join in while they serve. And so that's why we've asked AP and Taylor here today. As they mentioned, they've both been missionaries down in the Dominican Republic, and they have a lot of firsthand experience fundraising. And so they can help encourage you and give you new ideas when it comes to fundraising. So if the two of you don't mind, it could be kind of conversational. Go ahead and let us know about your experience fundraising. How has it gone? What have you been fundraising for? We'll just kind of start there.
I'll start. So the first time I ever fundraised for myself, I mean, honestly, I think we can all think back to like bake sales in elementary school. That's technically fundraising, right? But here we're talking about, to specifically go on a service trip or to be a missionary like AP and I have experience in. My very first time fundraising for a mission or for a service trip was with Here for Kids in 2012. I remember I really wanted to go, and my parents said they could help me with a part of it. I was still in college and, didn't have a whole lot to contribute myself. And I, at the time, only 10 years ago, but I did all mailed letters and got a lot of family members excited and helped me financially be able to go on that trip. So that was amazing. And then I, depending on the trip as a member of staff, it was a little different, but I would fundraise here and there for my many other service trips I did with Here for Kids. But then I'd say one of the biggest reasons I'm on this call is fundraising, or we also call it raising support to become a missionary. You basically are, at least with the way Kids Alive International works, and I think most missions organizations, you're not getting a salary from the organization itself. You are responsible for partnering with friends, family, churches, acquaintances you've just met. We'll get into that, to have them give you monthly or quarterly or whatever they're able to do some amount of money, and that goes into paying for your living expenses and other different ministry projects you might have while living abroad. And so that most missionaries, I'll let AP expand on her experience too, but go through a process for several months before you can actually leave the United States to become a missionary overseas, because they need to make sure that you're going to be funded, that you're going to have enough money to pay an apartment, to pay gas, to eat. So I had to meet with a lot of different people. It was a really fun, actually eye-opening, awesome experience. We'll get into that more, but that's my main experience with it. And last but not least, when I was on staff for Here for Kids International as accounts receivable coordinator, I know Vicki's doing an awesome job in this right now too, but part of what I did, especially towards the beginning, the first couple of years in my role, was actually giving people templates, giving them ideas. How can you fundraise? How can you talk to others about this? So I did have that role within Here for Kids for a while.
And I do want to mention right here too, we'll talk more about it at the end, but those templates are available on our website. So we do have resources for you as you go about fundraising, and we'll show you where those are at the end of the video. We'd love to hear from you too, AP.
Hey, okay, so my background, I guess, on fundraising began probably when I was 14 or 15. And I got involved with an organization called the American Cancer Society, which puts on an event called Relay for Life that some of you may have participated in kind of all over the world. And it is an event that raises money for cancer research. And so I got thrust pretty quickly into some leadership roles that I hadn't intended to be in, but ended up loving being in. And a big part of that was asking for financial and material donations, as well as voluntary time, position donations, all that stuff. And it was something that I was really intimidated about at first. And it felt shameful almost to ask for money. In maybe the culture I grew up in, that's not something that you were supposed to do. You're supposed to be able to fund or pay for things yourself, and asking for money felt like a weird thing to do. But it's something I quickly grew comfortable with over the time and laugh about now, because the Lord was clearly preparing me to have to do that in a long-term capacity, because that's how I fundraise my expenses for living now. Or that's how fun. And so over the course of 2 years, we were, as a community, we're able to raise over $500,000 for cancer research. And that's something too, I think that it's a non-religious organization, the American Cancer Society. And so even without the higher calling of what we believe as what I believe as a Christian should be the reason for giving, it was still something that was very successful and very doable. So I want to encourage you that can be possible no matter what your faith background is. It's not just something that Christians do. In college, I also worked with a nonprofit called Chi Omega, which is sorority, but they're actually a nonprofit. And we raised money for Make-A-Wish Middle Tennessee through what we would call fashion shows. And so we had people who sponsored our fashion show and bought tickets to come to it. And during that time, as well as when I first started coming on Here for Kids teams, and we would host dance nights and things that people had to buy tickets to as a way to raise money for our team. And then coming on the mission field and living full time as a overseas worker obviously takes a lot of fundraising. We have to put a budget out to begin with and then fundraise that. But I would say God's only shown me, just confirmed my calling to each of these places. I feel like doors really open in ways that it has never been the scariest part of any of these endeavors, fundraising or support raising or partnership raising. It's always ended up being the weirdly easiest part. And so I want to encourage you all that it's not as hard or intimidating as you think it might be.
Thank you. Anything to add, Diego, or from the two of you, any other comments on that? Okay, great. And then I know we all have like this traditional, I guess, definition in our minds of what fundraising is. You know, you're raising funds. But I know both of you had to do more of a study on this before you became missionaries. Can you give us a little insight into maybe what that looked like, or what another definition of fundraising might be?
one thing that I found really helpful, there were many different kind of trainings that we had to do before we came on the field, and books we had to read. One, if you are interested in reading, Taylor and I both recommend, called The God Ask, that has a lot of really helpful ways to view support raising, as well as just a lot of the spiritual part behind it, as well as just the logistics of raising support. But something that was really kind of shifted the paradigm in my mind for me about support raising was viewing your supporters as partners. And so that has really been huge for me throughout the process. And what I've realized is that there are a lot of people who want to go. And it's a privilege for those of us who are able to go, whether that's for a week or a couple of days or for years, like Taylor and I have done. But a lot of people really in their heart would love to have that, but for different reasons aren't able to go, but still want to support work that is being done overseas, and especially work that's being done to help kids who are at risk, which is what most of our partners do. And so most of our partner organizations do. And so viewing people, supporters, people who give money as partners has really been helpful for me. So they are just as much a part of it as I am, that I get to be the hands and feet of the work that's happening in a lot of ways, but they are making it possible for me to be able to be here. And so every time that I would give a talk or ask for financial support, I would really view it as a way of like, I really would love to have you on my partner team. Like, we are a team that is doing this together, and I would love for you to be a part of this. And then from that, kind of give an option of what being a partner and being on this team looks like. And so for me, being a partner means that you can partner with me in prayer. You can partner with me by giving physical donations, if that's clothes that don't work anymore, or sports things. And you can partner with me also by financially supporting my needs and my trip in the case of Here for Kids. And so really keeping them up to date on what goes on and how they are a part of what's going on is something that's super special. And I always get a lot of, and I know Taylor did too, positive feedback about keeping people updated and allowing them to feel like they're part of it, because the reality is they really are a huge part of the work that we are getting to do.
I love, AP, how you went, you ask us, I think we're the two type of people, if you ask us this question, it's not, fundraising is raising money, because it means so much more, right? Like, that definition, I totally followed with you. And I'm just wondering if other people are going to watch this and be like, what? They just asked, what is fundraising? But to us, it does encompass so much more than simply like looking for money for something. But as you mentioned, obviously I'd say the widespread understanding of that word is raising funds. We're raising monetary donations for something. And that could be American Cancer Society. That could be a 1-week trip to the Dominican Republic or Peru or Haiti. And it could also be, for several years, asking people to commit to give to you on a, again, monthly, quarterly, yearly basis to allow you to pay for your day-to-day needs. But I think even though there's so much more to it, I do think at the bottom of it, yes, every missionary does need, or most all missionaries do need to go and actually ask for that money. And we will definitely get into later more of what AP was saying about, if you can't give financially, maybe you can give of other donations of items that you might have, or just be a part of my team, receive my updates. I'll send you a letter after I get back from my 1-week trip, and you can hear all about what happened, and maybe that'll change what they want to do in the future, whether that's go on a team, whatever. So all that we'll get into, but what I wanted to highlight really quick for, yes, at the very basic of it, fundraising is raising financial support to allow you to do what it is that you are hoping to do. And in our case, as Here for Kids, that's typically a weekend or a week long, sometimes longer, service trip in another country. But there's an image from that book that AP showed, and I don't have my copy anymore. I think I destroyed it because I read it so much. I think what I remember last was the binding fell off, and I don't know what happened to it. So it was a really eye-opening, good book. But there's an image of a triangle. I'm not sure if we'll be able to put that in the video, so I'll try to explain it in detail. But at the top of the triangle is God. The bottom left is the ministry worker, or in this case, just service trip participant. And then the potential supporters on the bottom right of the triangle. So as you, the person hoping to fundraise, you are going to, if you do believe in God, oh, perfect. Then I don't have to explain it a whole lot. If you believe in God or whatever your faith may lead you to, you're asking, this is a faith ask. You're asking for provision. You're trusting that you're going to be able to go and do this, pay this bigger amount of money you may not have to be able to serve. And so you ask for that provision, and then you ask others to invest in your trip, in you, however you want to phrase it. Again, we'll get into that as well. And then that potential supporter is also, again, a partner. They are also serving. And if they're also, if they have the same faith as you, or a different faith or other thing that drives them, that they believe in, they're going to look to those values that they have. In this image, again, we have God at the top, and they're going to ask God, okay, is this someplace? What I love, it says, ask where to invest, not if. So we know that we're called to give of our finances. And so sometimes we can give to several different, young adults or people going to serve on teams or missionaries. Other times they might not be able to, they're already giving other places, but after they've had that conversation with God or they've prayed, then they can decide what to do. So really they are also looking to God for guidance in that moment.
Great, thank you. Yes, I like the image. Thanks for sharing. I do have, I think this is probably a big question for a lot of people. How do you go about it? How do you go about asking people whether or not they would like to help you fundraise for your trip? And who, I guess, too. Let's include that in this right now as well. How do you ask, and who are you asking?
I normally, at least this is personal experience, the things that have been the most successful for me are personal asks. Occasionally, for me, more impersonal asks like letters and social media things have worked, but for me, really asking someone in person. And I think there's kind of this model that people use for asking one-on-one, but even for me, something that's been less intimidating but also equally successful is like inviting people to a night where I get to share about what's going on in the DR. And I think that that's something that our team members could do, or even a team as a whole. Like, we would love for you to hop on this Zoom call and hear about what we are planning to do. And then at the end, inviting them to be a part of it. And so that's something that I think is always really successful, because it kind of paints the picture of partnership, of them getting to be a part of it, and then invites them to be in it in a way that is a little bit more personal than maybe just putting something on social media or sending a letter. Even though I have had good success from letters, so don't not send letters. I think that anyone that you think about, like when we had to go on the field, we had to make lists of people in our different spheres of life. I think that that's a really great thing to do. Family, friends, be more inclusive than exclusive. Don't leave someone out of being asked just because you assume they wouldn't want to be. I think asking as many people as you want to, and a lot of the people who have given the most faithfully to me have been the people who have surprised me the most. So that would be my encouragement. Tay, what do you got to add?
Gosh, and again, I'm trying not to skip ahead too much, but it is really hard, especially if you've never done it before. It is, I hope we're going to convince you with this video, it is actually really rewarding and can be really, really awesome for both, for the person going to serve and also those that are supporting you. But it can also feel just like, oh my gosh, like AP said when she first started, like, how am I going to go ask someone to give me money, even $25? It just feels like, no, how do I do this? So it is a tough thing to wrap your head around maybe at first, but we truly encourage you to try and do that personal ask, like AP said. And in this day and age, you might have people that are close to you spread all over. So that might be a Zoom call or a phone call if you're not able to see them face to face. But how did I ask? So as I mentioned, my first ever trip for Here for Kids, I did letters. I think I spoke to some people, some of my family members on the phone. I think I mainly stuck to family members at that point in time. Aunts and uncles, and then some close family friends, because I was in college. Most of my friends didn't have, strong incomes at that point, and most of my cousins and things like that, again, were all in that same boat. So at that point, I was a little more limited. And then when I went to fundraise to be a missionary, gosh, well, you have to expand that for becoming a missionary, unless you're, the first 5 people who ask all of a sudden fill all your needs, which can happen. But it was really cool. And even though I had to do that more for being a long-term missionary, I still would recommend, if someone wants to even consider this, for a shorter service trip. I spoke with members from my church. I would speak at different small groups, not just the one I was in. So you get that face-to-face, and then afterwards people can talk to you one-on-one. I actually spoke to in front of my whole church. I spoke at those bigger events, and then sometimes people would come up to me and have a sign-up sheet, and we'd go get coffee one-on-one. And in those cases, that was kind of that, they'd surprise me. I remember one in particular. We met, and he decided to go get baptized right after we met. And so he never forgot our meeting for more than just like, I'm going to support this missionary. But he then faithfully supported me. A man I had just met, went to my church, so he saw me speak for the whole time I was there. So that was incredible. As I got older, again, I could ask cousins or friends, depending on their circumstances. But you don't even have to always think about, can they give financially? Think too, would they just want to know more about what I'm doing? And that's when AP had mentioned you can back to the how, you can include, here are the ways we can partner together. You can be praying for me. You can opt to receive either an email or a written letter when I get back with pictures and information about my trip. Or you can give financially, or you can give donations, physical donations. This is what we need. And more often than not, someone's going to definitely agree to do at least one of those things, if not more. So I think I covered who, and then the how. I think AP had some more creative ways, talking to the dances and all that. That's really awesome. I've done all those in-person ones I mentioned, one-on-one, big groups, letter writing, emails, not so much, but I feel like that may have replaced the letter writing now. So that's totally fine. I just haven't personally done that. And then you can think of Facebook, birthday, I want to raise money for my trip on my birthday instead of getting presents. Or I do remember one team member of ours, on one of my first trips, had a birthday party soon before we were leaving, and she had all people bring whatever amount they would have spent on a gift for her, and she used that towards the trip. So you can be really creative.
I'd like to highlight what AP said and kind of follow up on what you're saying, Taylor, about AP, about people surprising you. I feel like that's very common, and especially if it's your first time fundraising, when you reach out to your communities and to your circles and you kind of share about what you're embarking on. People want to support that experience. Like AP said at the beginning, maybe they can't serve with you or they can't travel with you. So a way for them to support you and for them to serve with you is to support you financially. That happened to me. I was fundraising for a trip and I just put it out on social media, I remember. And then I got a donation from a friend of a friend that apparently that was something that they had done before and they wanted to support someone else, and they were in the right financial situation where they could support me. So that was really special to receive that from them. And it was a total surprise. And what was important about that was also to thank them. So I know that's something we're going to talk about. And also different ways. There are so many creative ways now to fundraise with social media, I think, especially if you consider Instagram or Facebook, how you can create those birthday fundraisers, like you're saying, Taylor, and an email chain. Another example I can talk about is my high school soccer team was doing a fundraiser for uniforms. And the first year they reached out, I did not have, let's say, the capacity or maybe the connection to the team team that I needed to be able to support. And then the following year, my friend became the coach, and I got that same email, and I really felt called to support because I was in the financial state to support, and I felt that connection. So if you're reaching out to someone that they have some type of connection with you, and they just happen to have or be in the right state, a financial state to be able to support, it's going to happen. And if they're not, that doesn't mean they don't like you. That doesn't mean they don't want to support you. Maybe in the future they'll be able to. So just because they didn't respond or support, it doesn't mean you have to kind of cross them off the list of the people you're reaching out to.
No, thank you. I think those are really great points. And I was actually going to mention this earlier too. One of you was talking about it, but I think it was AP was saying, actually Taylor touched on it too, giving them the different options, so maybe they're not in the financial capacity to support right now. Giving them the option to stay connected, stay in tune with these service trips that you're going on. And then maybe, who knows, in the next year, they've seen what you've been doing the last couple of years, and now they're in the position to support. So I do think opening up those different kind of pathways for people to support is really important. And yeah, it could lead to maybe support down the line. Or maybe even it could encourage one of these people in your network to join you one year on a service trip, which is really cool. And it's a fun experience to share with friends and family and people in your network. So keep those things in mind as you go off to fundraise. Any other comments?
Yeah, sorry. I want to say something really quick because I want to make sure we do address this question. And I think Diego mentioned it really quick. We've all kind of mentioned it, but I want to just directly say, fundraising, you might not even need to fundraise, but if you choose to fundraise, this is an opportunity to get so many more people serving with you. Again, it's partnership. It is not just that they're donating and then they move on, they never think about it again. Most people that donate really want to know, how did it go? What experiences did you have? What did you learn? Tell me about the kids or whoever it is you were serving. Because again, as it's been mentioned, not all can go. But many can give. And I think we all get so worried they're going to get so offended or whatever it is by our ask. But I'd say in my experience, most give joyfully and are very excited to be a part of the experience. And they definitely feel like they were a very important part of it because they are. So we'll probably get to that maybe in your next question, Vicki, but how to keep them kind of in the loop afterwards is a good thing to talk about.
Yeah, and before we move on to that, I do want to ask, I know we were thinking about this topic before, but we've been mentioning a lot, people, you're like fundraising through your church or asking people through your church. What if you don't have a church? I know we talked about family, friends. Are there other groups you can think of that you can maybe reach out to if you don't have a church community?
I feel like neighbors, sororities, fraternities, that may be a regional thing, but any kind of like club that you're a part of, friends, anyone like coworkers, I think any kind of social group that you're a part of and community is just whoever your community is, I think is people worth reaching out to. And sometimes there's community organizations like Rotary or things like that may even want to sponsor. If you're a university student, there might be some grants that are a part of your university that you can look into, but I think that there's a lot of different people that is not just related to faith community that could be a really great community to ask.
I agree with that. I'd love to add, for example, from my experience, my mom's a teacher. So for me to be able to tell my mom or give her maybe a write-up or an email that then she could share at her school with her coworkers and her teachers that knew me as I was growing up, and she would talk about me when I was young, that was successful. Also, like you said, AP in different groups or friends, I know it was mentioned that maybe not reaching out to someone because you don't think that they're in the financial state, but maybe their parents are, but maybe their friends are, right? So I would say reach out to anyone and everyone. There shouldn't be anyone that gets left off your list. And also, it might take a couple asks until they eventually give, right? So if you ask this time when you go on this trip, maybe they're not, feeling called or not in the right state, like I mentioned earlier, but maybe in your next trip, they know that this is something that you went on one time and would like to do again, and want to support you. So the number one reason people give is because they're asked. So take advantage of that opportunity and make your odds work for you.
Yeah, that's huge. I'd say I should mention that I don't come from a religious family, just my immediate family more. And so that very first trip, when I reached out and asked my other family members to donate, I wasn't reaching out to people with the same faith background. And yet, they provided, they went above and beyond. It has to do with the connection with the person asking. They love me, they want to support me. And you can also, when I went to become a missionary, but I'm a dietitian. I was focusing on nutrition. I even got some, college professors who didn't have the same faith background, but they really wanted to support my work, knowing what I was going to go do and believing in the mission of what I was doing. So you can go into details. We talked about how, I didn't mention this earlier, AP mentioned sharing a presentation. I made like a Shutterfly book, which might be overkill for a 1 week trip, but maybe you plan on going for a couple years, you don't know, or several trips. And it was this cool visual and it was easy to carry around with me. But you talk about what you're doing and someone will connect. Again, they're connected with you, but they also are connected with some part of what you mentioned. So whether it's the faith aspect of what you're going to do, or specifically, you're going to build a house, and to them that strikes something from their past or something they're passionate about, and they're like, oh my gosh, yes. So just the more you share, the more, I think, wider audience you can capture, because they're gonna connect with something.
Great. Thank you. And then now getting to the part we were talking about earlier, how do you thank your donors? Once you do have people who donate to you, what are ways that you've thanked your donors, or what would you say is a good way to thank your donors?
I'll go quick because I also I want to hear what Diego and AP have to say on this, but it's really important to thank the people that have partnered with you in some way. So as a missionary, it's pretty common to send out email newsletters with updates, and you're constantly thanking them, but then always having that personal touch somewhere along the line, sending again, as a missionary, at least once a year, sending a physical handwritten letter if you're able. And then if we're talking, a service trip with Here for Kids, writing that thank you note, if you're unable to do via mail, over email, when you're back from the trip. I think Diego might talk more about this, but with our with our Here for Kids Instagram account and different social media accounts you can also invite people to follow you on that trip. They can get updates, but then you can give them a little update and thank them at the end. Again, that personal touch is really important. And so I think it has to be, I'd really encourage it to be something personal, a phone call, a letter, an email to the people that gave financially, especially, but also all the people that donated physical items that were praying for you, somehow giving them an update and letting them know what happened on your trip.
I can add to that. From personal experience, I remember going to Lima one year, and then we went to Machu Picchu at the end. I intentionally bought postcards at Machu Picchu, returned home, printed out pictures from my time serving the week before, and then put those together and wrote a personal message to the people that supported me. So that's really a personal and special way for people to see that that trip was impactful for you. It's important for them to stay updated throughout the trip, and that's possible with our daily Instagram updates while you're abroad. So there's no need for you to find a way to keep them updated throughout the week, because HFK can do that on your behalf. And it's cool for them to see that it's not just you having this experience, but a group of you, right? So this support that they're giving you, other people are doing the same. So they kind of feel part of this team. Yeah, that's what I would add.
I think too, the more you know your donors or your partners, the more you can think about how they receive love. We talked about the love languages. For example, like in the DR, you can buy little mini packs of coffee. They're like the cutest little thing ever. And they're, I mean, less than $1, so you could buy a donor that maybe. You may have someone that supports you that really values quality time, and they may want to hear 1 minute, 5 minute, 30-minute summary of the trip. And so you can reach out and share with them personally what it was like. That might be something that's meaningful to them. Words of affirmation, like writing letters, all those different kind of ways of expressing gratitude. The more you know your donors and the more personal you can make it, the better. For those of us who kind of do this career-wise and have people who give to us monthly for years on end, I think, around the holidays, we send out like a Merry Christmas and then a little gift of some sort. Or if I go home, I'm sure to bring like a little chocolate for people or things like that. But just any kind of acknowledgement of, I really appreciate that you made this possible, I think is really invaluable. And it's funny because every time that I thank someone, I end up, it's like the never ending cycle because people then feel compelled to give again. And so then I'm like, oh my gosh, do I send you another thank you note? Like, what is the protocol here? But I think it also opens the door for future engagement of like, they felt seen, known, appreciated. And then if you go on a trip again, they're more likely to partner with you again.
Mm-hmm. And I think that brings up another point that I thought of as you were saying that, AP, thinking of your donors, not just after you go through the experience and maybe not just at the end or when you're traditionally wanting to thank them, but just when you're going through the experience. So if you're on a week-long service trip and you're thinking of your donors halfway through it, you can take a selfie video, maybe with the kids in the background of you playing with the kids, and specifically say, thank you, John, for this donation that you provided, and look at where I am and what I'm doing. And then if they like quality time, then that's video you can show them in person, or maybe you can send it to them with your thank you.
Thank you all for that insight. Yeah, I mean, I do the same. I write letters, I send postcards, pictures. I think, I really like what AP was saying about having a personal touch, kind of knowing what each person is like and what they value. I think that's really important and a great way to show that you really care and you really appreciate what your donors have been doing for you. Not only donors, again, prayers, things like that, everything. So we kind of touched on some of these other points earlier. So I'm just going to kind of ask this question. We also touched on it. If you're able to pay for your trip flat out, would you still recommend fundraising? What do you guys think?
The work's never done, man. I feel like there's always things you can, you're not going to hit a limit on what you can do with people's generosity. So I think that if you are able to support yourself, there's nothing wrong with that. I think go for it. I think about how you can involve other people in the bigger picture. You want to involve other people. So does that look like maybe partner raising with just prayer, or maybe asking people who would be willing to help contribute to other participants' team funding? You can also on Go Method, little Go Method plug, you can donate just to the team. So you can ask people to just donate to the team as well, or to Here for Kids in general to support kind of the ongoing mission of Here for Kids. So I think there's nothing wrong with, and it's great if you're able to support yourself. But I think always keeping in mind just the eternal calling that all of us have to be involved in something greater than ourselves, and inviting other people and giving people a way to be involved in it is really important. You don't want to withhold something from others when they have the opportunity to be involved in this as well.
Yeah, the only thing I would add to that, exactly 100% agree, is this is also an opportunity. If you may choose to fundraise even if you can pay for the whole trip, but you might put more of an emphasis. Again, I think what we've been trying to say throughout this whole video is when you do the pitch, when you do the ask, include all the ways that they can give, right? So if you really don't need or want financial donations for you, then be more specific. Add physical donations in there as well. We're always bringing donations to our trips, and that will depend, find out from your team captain what it is that specifically the site you're going to serve out is going to need. And then you can ask for those types of donations. And yeah, all the other things. Praying, do you want to pray for me? Do you want to get updates? And then maybe you can donate to Here for Kids or donate to the team itself.
I totally agree with what both of you said. I especially want to highlight what you're saying about maybe supporting the rest of the team. Let's say you can, raise the funds for you specifically, but not everyone on your team can do so. So the people that you're asking for support can maybe support those other people, or maybe they can support you and then you can support other people. So there's ways to maybe transfer funds within Go Method, like AP was saying. Also, think about sometimes when we travel, for example, a very relevant example is we went to Lima recently this year and they needed weighted blankets. So maybe if you can support your trip, maybe you can ask for those donations from other people and from extra support so that can go directly to buying those weighted blankets for the trip that you're going to go on. And like AP was saying, kind of don't take back or don't withhold, because people want to give and there's a joy in giving and people want to help. So if you provide that opportunity, they can surprise you.
Well, thanks guys for sharing. It was really great talking to you and hearing more about your perspective and what you've done over the years to fundraise, especially as missionaries. And then we'll have Diego go ahead and show us where we can find some of these resources that I mentioned that are on our website.
Sure. Thank you, Vicki. If we go to hereforkids.org and we hover over the top left where it says Serve, then we click on Service Trip Resources, we'll be taken to the page that hosts our Service Trip Resources. It has team member resources and team captain resources. As you scroll down, it also has a Go Method login conveniently there for you to log into your Go Method profile. You can either click these buttons or keep scrolling down. Here, we'll see our team member resources. We have 3 specific resources that I want to talk about, 2 specific to fundraising, Fundraising Letter, and Fundraising Info Sheet, and 1 specific to donations. First, we'll click Fundraising Info Sheet. This opens a PDF that we created for you that talks about fundraising, basically a summary of the recording that we had today. Something important to note under this Why It Matters section is that all donations are tax deductible, so that might be an extra incentive for people as they donate to your trip. Then we have a How It Happened section, which talks about creating your testimony, sharing your personal support page, which would be through our Go Method profile, personally connecting with people, and getting creative in how you fundraise. At the bottom, we have next steps, and you can always email us at info@hereforkids.org if you have any questions. If we go back to our website and we click on Fundraising Letter, this will open a letter that we created specifically for you. This is a preview. If you click on the top right where it says Use Template, it'll make a copy of this letter and copy it into your Google Drive. That way you can edit it how you want. At the top, we have a note that says, this is a template letter for you to edit and send to family or friends that might want to support you in your journey. Feel free to edit that in the description below before you start editing this letter. Throughout the letter, you'll see yellow highlights. That is where we've created prompts for you to be able to edit whatever you'd like to be able to send this out to people. You can also add anything else you'd like throughout this letter to make it truly yours. Then you can finalize this by printing it, exporting it to a PDF, putting it on your social media, whatever you'd like to be able to gather funds for your trip. If we go back to our website, this last resource, Donation Info Sheet, if we click here, this talks about specific physical donations. It talks about why that matters, how it happens, and how you can ask for help. And at the bottom, it talks about next steps you can take to gather donations for your trips. Below that, you can also find specific donation lists based on the location that you're traveling to. If we go back to our website, these are different resources you can see. When you're reaching out to a donor and maybe they are wondering what you're going to do during a trip, then you can keep scrolling all the way down past Team Captain Resources to where it says Other Resources. Here on the right, we have something called Service Trip Recaps. If you click that, it'll take you to our blog posts that talk specifically about different trips we've had and a recap of each trip. If we click this Lima one, for example, it goes through a daily recap. As you can see, day one, it has a description on what they did day one, and then a couple pictures, and it does that for every single day. It even has a couple of testimonials if we scroll all the way to the bottom. That way, people can basically see what a trip is going to be like before you go on a trip. I hope this helps. Thanks, Vicki.
Perfect. Okay. Well, thanks again for being here. Have a nice day. Bye.
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 Bye-bye. Thank you, everybody.